Good morning, my friend. Welcome to Wisdom and Wealth. I'm Jason. Each week, we gather here for a simple conversation about money, retirement, faith, and the wisdom that leads to real peace. If you're over 50 and you've ever wondered, am I too late? Will I have enough? Am I making the right financial decisions? You're in the right place. This channel isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about making wise decisions that honor God, strengthen your family, and help you finish well. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's spend the next few minutes growing a little wiser together. A few years ago, my wife and I were on vacation with our family. One afternoon, we drove to a beautiful mountain lake. The water looked crystal clear. The grandkids couldn't wait. They kicked off their shoes, ran down the dock, and jumped in without thinking twice. The adults weren't quite so brave. We stood at the edge of the dock, dipping one foot into the water. It'll feel warmer in a few minutes. I'll wait until the sun comes out. Maybe after lunch. We all laughed because we knew something the kids didn't. Mountain lakes are cold. But then something interesting happened. One of my grandkids climbed back onto the dock, looked at us, smiled, and said, "You know, it's not getting any warmer while you're standing there." He was right. 5 minutes later, the water hadn't changed. Only our excuses had. I've thought about that little moment many times since then. Because I've realized retirement planning is a lot like standing on that dock. We tell ourselves we'll start when life settles down, when we get the raise, when the house is paid off, when the kids are finally on their own, when the market looks better, when we know a little more, when next year comes. But next year has a funny way of becoming 5 years, then 10, then suddenly we wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and quietly wonder, have I waited too long? If you've ever asked yourself that question, you're not alone. Today I want to share the 7 retirement mistakes I see over and over again. Not because I want to make you afraid. Fear has never made anyone wiser. I want to help you make one wise decision today that your future self will thank you for. Because wisdom creates peace, and peace is worth planning for. Let's begin. Mistake number 1. As I worked, I found myself wishing I had planted them a few weeks earlier. The garden would already be full of color. The flowers would already be blooming. But wishing didn't change anything. The only thing I could do was put them in the ground that day. A few weeks later, those little plants had completely transformed the flower bed. Neighbors noticed them. People walking by slowed down to look. It was hard to imagine that just a month earlier, all I could see was bare dirt. Retirement planning is a lot like planting flowers. Most of us wish we had started sooner. We wish we had begun saving in our 30s. We wish we had paid off debt years ago. We wish we had made different financial decisions. But wishing never grows a single flower. Planting does. The same is true with your finances. You can't change the decisions you made 10 years ago, but you can make a wise decision today. And today's decision has a remarkable way of changing what your future looks like. Don't spend so much time looking at yesterday's empty flower bed that you never plant today's seeds. Yesterday is where regret lives. Today is where wisdom begins. Mistake number 2. Several years ago, I spoke with a gentleman who had recently retired after more than 40 years with the same company. He had done everything right. He worked hard, saved faithfully, stayed out of trouble, raised a wonderful family. When retirement finally arrived, everyone expected him to be the happiest man in town. Instead, a few months later, he admitted something that surprised me. I don't know who I am anymore. It wasn't the money. His finances were solid, and it wasn't his health. He was doing well. It was his purpose. For more than 40 years, his calendar told him where to be. His job gave him structure. His work gave him identity. His co-workers gave him community. Then one Friday afternoon, it all stopped. No alarm clock, no meetings, no projects, no one needing his experience. He had prepared financially for retirement, he just hadn't prepared personally. I think that's one of the biggest retirement mistakes Christians make. We spend decades planning how we'll leave work. Very few of us spend time asking what God wants us to do after we leave work. The Bible never describes retirement as the end of usefulness. In fact, some of God's greatest servants did remarkable work in the later seasons of their lives. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Age did not end their usefulness. It simply changed their assignment. Maybe retirement isn't God's way of saying, "You're finished." Maybe it's His way of saying, "Now I can use you differently." Perhaps you'll mentor a young couple, volunteer at your church, help raise your grandchildren, encourage a struggling neighbor, teach a Sunday school class, or simply become the calm, wise presence your family needs. Financial freedom without purpose eventually becomes boredom, but financial freedom combined with God's purpose becomes one of the most meaningful seasons of life. Retirement is not the end of your calling. It's the beginning of a new assignment from God. Mistake number 3. Several years ago, my wife and I walked through a beautiful neighborhood while we were on vacation. The homes were stunning, perfect landscaping, luxury cars in the driveways. Everything looked like success. As we walked, I remember thinking, I wonder how many people behind these front doors are actually at peace. Not happy for a weekend, not enjoying a nice house. Truly at peace, because if there's one thing life has taught me, it's this. Money solves many problems. It can buy a safer car, a more comfortable home, better medical care, freedom from certain financial pressures, and those are real blessings. But money has never been able to purchase contentment. I've known people with modest retirement accounts who slept soundly every night. I've also known people with more money than they could spend who worried constantly. One feared running out, the other trusted God to provide. The bank accounts were different. But the biggest difference wasn't the number, it was where they placed their security. Jesus asked a question that still echoes through every generation. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? I think we could ask a similar question today. What does it profit us if we build the perfect retirement account, but never learn how to rest? Contentment isn't something you discover after reaching a certain dollar amount. It's something you practice long before you get there. That's why I encourage people to prepare faithfully, save consistently, pay off debt, plan wisely. But don't make the mistake of believing peace is waiting at a particular number. Peace doesn't live in your retirement account. Peace grows where trust in God takes root. Ironically, I've found that the people who experience the greatest financial peace are often the ones who understand that their hope was never in money to begin with. Money can make life more comfortable. Only God can make your heart truly at rest. Build your retirement, but build your trust in Him even more. Mistake number 4. When I was younger, I used to think debt was mostly about interest rates. If the rate was low enough, it didn't seem like a big deal, but the older I've become, the more I've realized debt isn't just a financial issue. It's a freedom issue. Every monthly payment quietly limits tomorrow's choices. A mortgage, a car payment, credit card balances, home equity loans. Each one asks for a little piece of next month's paycheck before you've even earned it. That's manageable when you're working full-time. But retirement changes the equation. Instead of living on a paycheck, you're often living on what you've spent decades building. Every dollar that goes toward debt is one less dollar available for enjoying time with your spouse, taking your grandchildren on a weekend trip, supporting your church, or simply sleeping a little better at night. Now, let me be clear. Not everyone can walk into retirement completely debt-free. Life doesn't always cooperate with our plans. Medical bills happen, job losses happen, helping family members happens. Sometimes carrying debt isn't the result of poor decisions. It's simply the result of living in a broken world. So this isn't about guilt. It's about direction. If you're carrying debt today, don't be discouraged. Ask yourself one simple question. What's my next wise step? Maybe it's paying an extra $50 toward a balance this month. Maybe it's selling something you no longer use. Maybe it's delaying a large purchase. Maybe it's finally making a written payoff plan. Small, consistent decisions create remarkable momentum. I've experienced that personally. There were seasons when progress felt painfully slow, but every payment reminded me that I wasn't standing still anymore. I was moving toward freedom, and every little step made the next one feel possible. Debt doesn't just cost you interest. It costs you options. Every payment you eliminate gives tomorrow's you a little more freedom. That's why wisdom isn't about becoming rich. It's about becoming free. Mistake number 5. Several years ago, I decided I was going to fix something around the house. You know how those projects start. You look at it and think, how hard can this be? So I grabbed my tools, watched a couple of videos, and got to work. About 3 hours later, I had managed to turn a small repair into a much bigger repair. Eventually, I did what I should have done in the first place. I called someone who knew what they were doing. In less than 30 minutes, the problem was fixed. I remember laughing to myself because I hadn't saved any money. I had only delayed getting the right help. Sometimes we do the same thing with retirement. We spend hours searching the internet. We read articles. We watch videos. We listen to opinions. Before long, we're more confused than when we started. One expert says to claim Social Security early. Another says to wait. One tells us to pay off the mortgage. Another says to invest every extra dollar. It's no wonder people freeze. Can I encourage you with something? You don't have to figure out every answer by yourself. God has always worked through wise counsel. The book of Proverbs reminds us, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. That doesn't mean listening to everyone. It means listening to the right people. A trusted financial planner, a wise mentor, a godly friend who has walked this road before you. Your spouse. The goal isn't to prove how much you know. The goal is to make wise decisions. There is great freedom in saying, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. That isn't weakness, that's wisdom. Pride says, I'll figure it out myself. Wisdom says, show me the right path. The fastest way to grow in wisdom is to learn from someone who has already walked the road you're traveling. Mistake number 6. One Sunday morning, I watched an older couple quietly place their offering into the plate. If you had looked at them, you probably wouldn't have noticed anything unusual. They didn't drive a luxury car, they didn't wear expensive clothes, they lived in a modest home. But over the years, I learned something about them. They had been generous their entire lives, not because they had more than everyone else, because generosity had become part of who they were. That taught me an important lesson. Generosity isn't something we suddenly become when our retirement account reaches a certain number. It's a habit we build long before we retire. Sometimes people tell me, when I have enough money, then I'll start giving. I understand that feeling. I've thought it myself, but I've also discovered something. If we're waiting for enough, we'll probably spend our whole lives waiting. There will always be another expense, another repair, another reason to hold on just a little tighter. Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Notice he didn't say our treasure follows our heart. He said our heart follows our treasure. Every act of generosity reminds us that money is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. The goal of retirement isn't simply to accumulate enough so we can keep everything we've earned. The goal is to become faithful stewards of everything God has entrusted to us. That may mean helping a grandchild go to college, supporting a missionary, meeting the needs of a struggling family, blessing your church, or quietly paying for someone's groceries without expecting anyone to know. Those moments often produce more joy than buying something for ourselves. I've never met someone who regretted wise generosity. I have met many who regretted waiting too long to live generously. Generosity doesn't begin when you have more. It begins when you trust God with what you already have, and that's where real financial freedom begins. Mistake number 7. Several years ago, I was taking an evening walk through our neighborhood. As I passed one house, I noticed an older gentleman working in his front yard. He wasn't planting anything. He was pulling weeds, slowly, patiently, one at a time. I smiled and said, "Looks like a lot of work." He smiled back. "It is." Then he said something I've never forgotten. "If I stop taking care of it because it's not perfect, next spring will be worse." I thought about that for a long time. Isn't that true of our finances? Sometimes we look at where we are, the retirement account we wish were larger, the debt we wish were gone, the years we wish we could have back, and we become discouraged. We tell ourselves, what's the point now? But wisdom has never been about changing yesterday. Wisdom has always been about stewarding today. Maybe you can't go back and save more in your 30s. Maybe you can't undo every financial mistake you've ever made. Neither can I. But you can choose what happens this afternoon. You can make one phone call. You can create your first written retirement plan. You can increase your savings by 1%. You can pay a little extra on debt and you can begin. The enemy of wisdom isn't failure. It's believing failure gets the final word. As followers of Christ, we know that's never how the story ends. Scripture is filled with people God used in the later chapters of their lives. Abraham, Moses, Caleb, Anna. Their greatest usefulness didn't happen because they were young. It happened because they remained faithful. I believe the same can be true for you. Maybe your retirement account isn't where you hoped it would be. Maybe you're carrying more debt than you planned. Maybe you're wondering if you've waited too long. Friend, don't confuse being behind with being finished. As long as God gives you another sunrise, He has given you another opportunity to be faithful, and faithfulness, practiced day after day, has a remarkable way of changing both our finances and our hearts. Real wealth isn't measured only by what you've accumulated. It's measured by the peace that comes from knowing you've been faithful with what God placed in your hands. One wise decision won't transform your retirement overnight, but it might transform the direction of your life. So this week, don't try to fix everything. Just make one wise decision, then make another tomorrow, because wisdom creates peace, one decision at a time. Thank you for spending part of your morning with me. If these conversations encourage you, I'd be honored to have you join me again next week. Until then, may the Lord give you wisdom for every decision, contentment in every season, and peace that is greater than every number on every statement. God bless you. I'll see you next time.